Today, I'm going to continue my series of talks on depression and just as a kind of review, the reason why I'm covering this is right now with the COVID, it seems like a lot of people are experiencing at least mild depression. So it seemed like to me it was a timely subject to offer. I'm going to start out here with a definition. This comes from the American Psychiatric Association. Depression is a common and serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. Depression causes feelings of sadness and/or loss of interest in activities you once enjoyed. It can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems and can decrease your ability to function at work and at home. So next, I want to read a quote from Karmapa. We need to get to know our emotions. Right now, they are strangers to us. When we come across them, sometimes we react as if we were being confronted by a bandit. Instead, we should make their acquaintance and then gradually make friends with them or create a wholesome relationship with them. In the end, the fact that anger or some other emotion no longer arises is not a result of forcefully shutting it out, but a matter of very naturally or even joyfully coming to the point where you make friends with it and are naturally in control. So today I'm going to be going in that direction of what we can do to work with the depression, mild or severe, and come to be in control of it, to make friends with it, to get to know it. And actually, it can become an ally of ours and help us along the path. Also, it can help us understand other people because lots of other people experience depression from time to time. It is also important to note that our minds are very powerful, but we are in a relationship with our body, our mind and our body, and some forms of depression can be caused by physical things going on in the body, or more likely, a combination of things going on in our body and then the way our mind is working with it. And of course, it's a feedback loop, and our mental health can have a tremendous bearing on our physical health. So it's all interconnected. And when we make improvements in our mental state, our mental attitude, and so forth, that can have a very positive effect on our physical being. And I'm not saying don't go to psychiatrists. I'm not saying don't take antidepressants. But what I am saying here in this talk and previous talks is that don't just depend on them exclusively. That if you're already seeing a psychiatrist or a therapist and are on medication, talk to them before you stop taking the medication. I'm not a physician or a psychiatrist. So to continue with another Karmapa quote, I guess this isn't a Karmapa quote, excuse me. He says that we need to recognize the difference between ourselves and our emotions. That if we can, you might say, realize that there is some distance between us and our emotions, that we are not what we think. We are not whatever strong or weak emotion that we are experiencing at the time, that is not us, that this is just temporary things that come and go. And if we can keep that in mind and keep some space between us and the emotion, especially the stronger ones, this will help keep us from being overwhelmed by them. And so this happens to everybody. So it's a matter of then recovery, and that is how quickly you realize, oh, I've been hijacked, and then letting go. That, and of course, meditation and mindfulness is really an important part. I'm going to go into this in more detail later, but it's a very important part of this equation of working with depression. And just plain working with any of our strong emotions and moods is to realize that we are not the emotion that we are experiencing, that it's just a passing event. If we can be more like a watcher than an experiencer of the emotion, we will find ourselves in a much better place. So meditation will provide a sense of space where we can then observe the emotion and not get caught up with it, where we can see it and then let it go. Come back to the breath if we're doing sitting meditation. And also in that space where we have a chance to look at it, that gives us a chance to decide whether we want to take this emotion on as an identity. Do we want to act on it? So mindfulness, again, gives us this place, this space in our mind where we can make a choice to be somewhere else than being totally involved in this painful emotion or this painful experience. An example that I have, I like to use is that let's say you are at a bus stop in Chicago, and a bus stops. Now, do you get on the bus, or do you look at where the bus is going and figure out, where do I want to go? And then make that decision before you get on the bus. Because if you just get on a bus in Chicago, you might go to some neighborhoods that you really would not care to go to if you were in a clear state of mind. So we can look at these emotions a bit like that bus. Do I really want to go where that is going, where it's going to take me? And realize that we have the ability, we can train our mind so that we don't have to get on that bus. And so these emotions do not have to be the only thing that's on our minds or that we're thinking about. That there's lots of things that we can think about. We can, among other things, say mantra or think about things that people have done for us that we have benefited from, to cultivate some gratitude and appreciation. We can be mindful of our surroundings. That the quality of a particular object in the room that we are in. There's so much that we can pay attention to. We could pay attention to our breath and meditate for a little while. So we have choices. We have lots of choices. And it's important to realize that. On the other hand, if that you are trying to avoid, you might say, buying into the emotion, and you buy into it, then when you realize what has happened, it is not beneficial in the least to beat yourself up and say, there, I did it again. I'm an idiot. I can't learn this. I'll never be any different, da, 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 da. That just is totally useless. That's just more of the same old, same old. It might be very comfortable to be in that place, very familiar, but it's kind of, what would I say? It's not a very healthy place to be, and it needs to, you need to recognize that and not beat yourself up, not get angry at yourself if you find yourself back where you don't want to be. So just observing the emotion, just having some distance and relaxing while you are doing this, that alone can be very beneficial. Very, you might say, educational. Another remedy for depression is just plain being out in nature. That just being outside, even if it's for a short time, this has a tendency to relax our mind and reduce stress. So just going for a walk, a short walk, can really help with our moods and our depression. So now I am going to go on here and talk about some other remedies, specifically that one of the, you might say, symptoms of depression is a loss of concentration, a weakening of one's memory. And meditation is an excellent tool to help us counteract that. That meditation will help us improve our concentration, help us avoid distraction, help us maintain a sense of stability. And what that means is resisting buying into these emotions that I had just talked about. So with meditation, first of all, we need some courage. And what that means is that we have to have courage to be willing to deal with the depression, that we need to have courage to cultivate our meditation practice. And what that actually means is that we have to have a willingness to allow ourselves to be in that depressed state rather than fighting it. This is part of getting to make friends with it, getting to know it, is you don't need to fight it. That becomes a big problem. So when we have courage, that means we're not going to fight it. And it also means we're not going to deny it, pretend that everything is just okay. So this kind of courage is based on our, you could say, conviction that we ourselves are capable of dealing with whatever arises. And this goes back to understanding, at least in a little bit, our Buddha nature, our inherent goodness, our primordial perfection. We have much more, you might say, going for us than we give ourselves credit for. One of the aspects of depression that I found out in myself, and I think this is very common, and that is self-deprecation, thinking, well, other people can do this, or other people can do that, but I can't. There's something wrong with me, and I just can't do that, and so there's no point in even trying. So it's good to contemplate our Buddha nature and realize that underneath all of the layers of thoughts and emotions and moods and so forth, that we have this Buddha nature that is just covered up, that all we have to do is uncover it. We don't have to create anything. We don't have to get something from outside of us. On the other hand, if we, you might say, give in to the depression and thinking about how we're just unable to cope, we just don't have the resources, don't have the courage, then of course we will start thinking about all kinds of things that could happen. All kinds of fear and anxiety and so forth can come up. And then, of course, what the depressed person does is, this is more than I can handle. It's time to go to sleep. So we need to avoid being afraid of fear, avoid being seduced by it. We can be with the fear, just be with it, experience it. And let go of it the best that you can. Again, the best that you can. So this fear of depression, in a way, it has a good element, and that is you're wanting to protect yourself. But on the other hand, there's no need to protect yourself from it. And it's not our experience that is the problem, but it is our reactions, our emotions and our moods and our thoughts and our overreactions that are the problems. And again, fortunately, in Buddhism, we have lots of techniques for working with our thoughts and our emotions and so forth. So it's important to concentrate on this courageous aspect of meditation. And being courageous is not being fearless. It is going beyond fear. It is experiencing the fear and then going beyond it, as opposed to, this is too scary, I'm not going there, and go in another direction. But if we can accept feeling fear and then going beyond it, we will progress. If we turn and run or ignore or deny, then we don't get anywhere. We're stuck. So it is a matter of accommodating, accepting depression, providing room for the depression, and learning to not react with alarm to it. So the next point is awareness and meditation. So if we have courage, then there will be awareness there automatically. And this awareness means just being able to see what's going on. So being aware of what is happening, the depression, the aspects of the depression, how you're feeling, your thoughts, maybe not everything, little by little, one step at a time. It's not an all or nothing thing. It's a process. And it's a moment-to-moment process. You might have awareness 1 second, and the next second you don't have awareness. It might be the next nanosecond you don't have awareness. But every moment of awareness is beneficial. And when you are practicing awareness and meditation and you're in a depressive mood, if you stay with it, you'll see that that mood changes, that it's not solid, it's not constant, that it is possible for it to change. Not that you're making a change, but it is changing all by itself, because this is the nature of depression and everything else in our world, impermanence. So as we become more attuned to what we are experiencing, we'll notice that actually the depression is never the same. It's always presenting itself slightly differently. So this is a very important point to know, is see how the depression is actually manifesting in your mind, and have the courage to stay with it and observe. Now, when we are in meditation posture, an instruction that I actually sometimes give and sometimes don't give, I don't think I gave it Thursday night, but it is to have your chest out. The Tibetans use an example which I don't think translates quite so well into Western culture, but have it out like a vulture. The idea that the vultures have their wings back and their chest out when they're sitting, let's say in Tibet, on a cliff, because there aren't so many trees to roost in. And so you want to have, when you meditate, your chest out, your shoulders back. It's a dignified position, sitting this way. In Asia, the Chinese emperors would sit on cushions. They would be on thrones, but they were not chairs. They were thrones with cushions on them in meditation posture frequently. And this is considered a royal position, a position of dignity, a position of majesty. Again, the same is true for the Japanese emperors, the Japanese shoguns. They would sit on cushions. and rule their kingdom. And so it's important to have this feeling of nobility and majesty when you are meditating. Another way of putting it is you don't have to be ashamed of who you are. And while we are meditating, we're not trying to go over the past or plan for the future or think what could happen in the future. It's simply paying attention to what's happening right now at this particular moment. And then whatever arises, we look at it and let it go and come back to the breath. It might take a while before we realize that we are not following the breath. But the important thing is to do the best that we can to maintain awareness of the present, what's happening right now, and let go of what has just happened or what has happened 30 years ago. When it arises, of course, it's a new thought, what happened 30 years ago. And it's not what happened 30 years ago. It's a new thought that just came up right now. Because what happened 30 years ago doesn't exist. And our thoughts about what happened 30 years ago are very, very, very distorted thoughts. There are memories of what we thought happened 30 years ago. And other people that were present at that time probably have a very different view of what happened 30 years ago. So that's a very important point, is that it's just thought, it's not real. And not only that, it's inaccurate about the fiction of what happened 30 years ago, which no longer exists. And if that doesn't get your mind spinning, I don't know what will, but that's really what we do. And we think it's real. So we can't be harmed by what's happened to us in the past, and we can't be harmed by what could happen to us in the future. So a third aspect here of meditation that can help with depression is to cultivate a sense of joy, which might seem like it's an oxymoron. What joy here means is a sense of physical and mental well-being. And that means that you don't feel too excited by the meditation, that you don't get bound up in any experiences that you think are negative or bad. It means that you don't get too down, don't feel too hopeless. In other words, joy means not being like a yo-yo, going up and down as different thoughts and emotions enter your mind as you are meditating. Joy is about being on an even keel, about being able to stay with whatever arises, but being able to control it rather than it control you. An example is riding a horse. So if you are not familiar with riding a horse, you get on a horse, get in the saddle and start riding it. And suddenly the horse spooks and makes a sharp turn, and you end up on the ground. Whereas an experienced rider, when the horse spooks, they stay on the horse. They don't lose their balance. It may surprise them, but they stay on the horse. And this is the way it is with meditation. The more we practice, the more we are able to stay with the practice and keep practicing even when things pop up into our mind that are quite strong, that could cause us to go up or down very quickly. And this doesn't mean that we don't have times where we're feeling really uplifted and joyous, and we don't have times when we're having feelings of flatness or, let's say, depressive thoughts. But that underlying all of this is that there is a mental attitude that this is something beneficial that we're doing, and that we have kind of a positive disposition about the meditation practice. And of course, Buddhism emphasizes change and impermanence. And so this is definitely applicable to meditation. Things will change even during a short meditation session, that sometimes you might have that joy, that even keel, and sometimes you might be just going all over the place in your mind, going up and down. But even experiencing it a little bit is beneficial. So that is the third point that I want to talk about. The fourth point is love and compassion with our meditation. And that is that in order to work with depression, love and compassion are essential. A depressed person frequently feels isolated from other people, perhaps feels unloved, perhaps don't even have any love for themselves. In Buddhism, we describe love as wishing that others have happiness and the causes of happiness. And compassion is defined wishing that others be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. So part of the process of working with depression is to reconnect with other people, other beings, even dogs and cats. And the way to do this is through love and compassion. So it's very, very important to include other beings in your practice. If no other way, then at the end of your practice, dedicating the merit to the benefit of all beings or particular beings that are suffering that you are aware of. So love is related to how we view ourselves and others. They're not just based on feelings and emotions. And we can actually use our daily lives as an expression of love. I just came to mind a quote of Karmapa, which I'm going to read here. I don't have it memorized, but thanks to the computer, I could find it quickly. Whatever you create can be a means of expressing love, your poetry, music, or artwork. Whatever you do on a daily basis, cooking, eating, sleeping, even getting dressed, all of these can be infused with love and compassion. Just going for a walk can be permeated with an open-hearted outlook. When all that you do stems from the motivating forces of love and compassion, then your actions become truly sustainable. So we can infuse our practice and our lives with love. We might feel that we don't have any to give, but we're just, that's just more self-deception. That actually the more of it that we give away, the more of it that we have. This isn't exactly about love, but there was a study that was done. It's probably been done more than one time. And it was about a test group, two groups, a test group and another group. And the one group, both the groups, they gave a test on happiness, individual, see how happy each individual was. And then they gave $100 to both groups. The one group, they said, now you have to spend this $100 on yourself and then come back and we're going to do another test. And the other group, they gave $100 to and said, you have to spend it on other people. And then come back and we're going to do the test. And of course, the people that gave the money away to other people came back happier than the people that spent it on themselves. So it might seem, again, contrary to common sense, but when you can give love to other people, it's coming back to you. You're getting more out of it than if you're just doing things for yourself. Love binds us together. Love helps us see the humanity in other people and so forth. So as we meditate, we can develop courage, awareness, joy, and love and compassion. And as these grow, our depression will weaken and dissipate. We don't have to get rid of it. It will get worn out all by itself. So we don't want to look at depression as an enemy and try to conquer it or overcome it. Our task is to learn the skills necessary to deal with whatever it is that we are experiencing, and to do that as skillfully as we can. With that, I'm going to open it up to questions. The question is, mornings seem to be the hardest. The depression seems to be the most solid and most difficult to get out of bed. So based on your own personal experience, was there something specific that you found helped you get out of bed? And I really can't remember one thing, but I will say this, and that is I did go to a psychiatrist that put me on a very strong antidepressant medication. And people thought I was on speed. It's not prescribed very much. For the record, it's phenylzine sulfate, a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. Took me a while to be able to say that. I never tried it saying 10 times when I'm jumping up and down on my left foot. But it's a very strong antidepressant, and it the theory is it works with a chemical imbalance and it changes the balance. And that it was the, like I said, people thought I was on speed. I would sleep 3 hours. You know, it would be manic, but without the depression. Busy, 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 busy the whole time. So I'm trying to think of what I did before that. Before that, I really wasn't working successfully with the depression, I will have to admit. Food did get me out of bed. I will say that. That just the very fact of eating, I might, after eating, then want to go right back to bed. And definitely after lunch, it was time for a nap. But I'm afraid I really don't have, you know, one particular thing that, and I'm going to say it's going to be individual.
Right.
It might be, you might try different things and just see what seems to have the strongest. Yeah, and I see a text here that says having a pet that needs to be fed can help. It might, if you feel that kind of connection with a pet, or if it's like, I don't want to deal with this.